In 1975, a £5 note carried real weight. The average bloke on a working wage was taking home roughly £45 a week. That fiver wasn't something you'd toss aside. When your nan or granddad slipped one into your palm at Christmas, you were absolutely made up, convinced you were the wealthiest kid on the street. And what that note could stretch to back then, you honestly wouldn't credit it today. Petrol was 73 pennies a gallon. £5 got you nearly 6.5 gallons. Bung that into a Ford Cortina doing 30 miles to the gallon, and you're covering the best part of 200 miles. A Sunday run down to the seaside and back? No bother whatsoever. And here's the bit that really gets you. You never had to budge from the driver's seat. An attendant came straight out, filled her up, had a look at your oil, and gave the windscreen a proper wipe while you sat there like you owned the place. These days, a fiver barely covers 4 litres, and you're stood there in the drizzle doing it all yourself. That same note could take you into Woolworths and bring you out clutching 2 brand new albums straight off the charts. An LP was about £2.20 in 1975. That meant Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here and Queen's A Night at the Opera both out that year, and you'd still hear coins rattling in your pocket on the way home. You'd spend ages at those racks, thumbing through the sleeves, pulling one out to have a proper look at the cover, walking back down the road with 2 records tucked under your arm. That was a good day. Those very same albums on vinyl will set you back £35 or more now. Before the golden arches showed up everywhere, Wimpy was where you went for a proper sit-down meal. Nearly 400 branches, the length and breadth of Britain, table service, real metal cutlery, and someone actually bringing your food over on a plate. A fiver covered the pair of you easily. 2 Wimpy international plates, a brown derby, each for afters, maybe a couple of whippy milkshakes. The whole lot came to around £2.50. People held their birthday doughs at Wimpy. First dates happened across those Formica tables. You made an effort, got yourself dressed up, and the change from your fiver still sorted the bus ride home. If football was your religion, that fiver went even further. Terrace admission was around 70p a head. A matchday program set you back 10p, and a pie with a cup of Bovril came to roughly 25p each. Factor in the bus both ways and £5 covered 2 lads for a full Saturday afternoon on the terraces. You'd be packed in shoulder to shoulder, scarves knotted round the barriers, feet like blocks of ice, waiting for that roar when the ball finally hit the back of the net. And you'd still have enough in your pocket for chips on the walk home. A Premier League ticket now kicks off at £30 to £40. The pie alone costs more than the entire 1,975 matchday outing. Now, if you were a nipper in 1975, the one thing you were absolutely desperate for was a Scalextric. Starter sets came in at around £5. 1 fiver, and you had the finest present in the country sitting beneath the Christmas tree. You'd lay the whole track out across the living room floor, belt those tiny cars round every bend until they went flying off, then have a blazing row with your brother over who got which controller. If you hadn't got one yourself, you knew someone who had, and you were round their house at every available opportunity. For the lads, there was Action Man. The basic soldier figure was about £2.50, and the kit packs came in at roughly £1 each. A fiver got you the figure and 2 complete sets of gear. Perhaps the deep-sea diver outfit with the rubber suit and the helmet, or the commando set with the beret and rifle. You could shift his eagle eyes using the lever on the back of his head. And that scar running across his cheek made him look like he'd genuinely seen some action. Tearing the wrapping off one on Christmas morning, every lad knew exactly what that meant. For the girls, that same fiver bought a Cindy doll and a handful of outfit changes. The basic Cindy was around £2.50, and those little individually packaged outfits on the Woolworths rack were about 75p each. You'd stand in that aisle deliberating for what seemed like half the morning. The little plastic Mac, the weekender with the tiny flared jeans, every outfit on its own miniature cardboard hanger behind clear cellophane. Anyone who grew up choosing Cindy's wardrobe can still tell you exactly which ones they picked. The skateboard craze had drifted over from California by the mid-70s, and boards were cropping up in toy shops right across Britain by 1975. A basic one cost about £3.50, which left just enough change for a set of knee pads that absolutely nobody ever actually wore. Clay wheels, solid wooden deck, weighed a ton. You'd shove off down the pavement, clip the first crack in the concrete, and be picking grit out of your elbows within half a minute. Saturday night at home cost even less than a fiver. A Watney's Party 7 set you back £1.35, and that great big tin held 7 pints of bitter. A decent bottle of red wine was about £1.25. 20 Embassy filters came to 42p. Throw in a few bags of Golden Wonder crisps at 8p a pop, and the whole evening was accounted for. You'd watch Dad wrestling the tin opener onto the top of the Party 7 while beer went everywhere across the kitchen lino. Mum would get herself settled with a glass of wine and the telly on for Match of the Day. Nobody was going anywhere because nobody needed to. If you did fancy getting out, Jaws had landed in British cinemas that summer of 1975, and absolutely everyone was on about it. An adult ticket was around 55p, with children going in cheaper, so a family of 4 could get through the doors for roughly £2. Add ice creams from the usherette's tray and the bus fare home, and you were looking at about £3.50 all in. You'd be sat there in the dark, waiting for those curtains to draw back, and by the time that shark appeared, half the audience was screaming, and the other half was doing their level best to pretend they weren't. The whole family outing for well under a fiver, and here's one that'll really knock you sideways. The 1975 FA Cup final, West Ham against Fulham at Wembley, Saturday the 3rd of May. Standing terrace tickets were about £1.50. A fiver got 2 people through the turnstiles at Wembley for the cup final, possibly 3. Bobby Moore, the man who lifted the World Cup for England back in 1966, was lining up for Fulham that afternoon against the very club where he'd made his name. West Ham won 2-0 inches front of 100,000 people. The cheapest Wembley Cup final seat today starts at around £45. A night out on the town wasn't much of a stretch either. 4 pints of bitter at 28p each came to £1.12. A portion of fish and chips on the way back was 35p. A taxi home for a couple of quid. The whole evening came in under £4, with change to spare from your fiver. You'd spend the night propped against the bar with the jukebox cracking away in the corner, then nip out for your chips on the way home. The taxi fare alone would swallow all of that now. But a fiver wasn't just for nights out. It sorted Christmas proper. A bottle of Harvey's Bristol Cream Sherry was £1.69. A genuine tin of Cadbury Roses, the big one, where you had to lever the lid off, came to about £1.75. Under £4, and Nan's entire Christmas was taken care of. The sherry glasses would come out of the display cabinet on the day. There'd be a full-scale argument about who got the strawberry cream, and that tin would spend the next 10 years on her kitchen shelf, holding biscuits long after every last chocolate had gone. If it was Dad you were buying for, a bottle of scotch did the business. Bell's, Teachers, or Haig came to about £3.50. A fiver covered the bottle and left change over for a lemonade or ginger ale to go with it. The drinks cabinet in 1975 was a proper piece of furniture. Glass doors, a little interior light that flicked on when you opened it, a mirror at the back that made 3 bottles look like half a dozen. You didn't go near it unless there were visitors, or it was Christmas, or Dad decided it was one of those evenings. A British Rail Day return to the nearest city cost about £1.50, which left £3.50 from your fiver for everything else. A cup of tea and a sandwich in a cafe, a wander round the shops, perhaps an afternoon picture, if the timing came off right. You'd hand your stiff orange ticket over at the barrier, find yourself a seat in the carriage, and pick up a cup of tea from the buffet car in a paper cup that never quite managed to be hot enough. But it was your day out, your little adventure, and a fiver covered every last penny of it. School dinners were 15p a meal per child in 1975, which meant £5 stretched to roughly 30 dinners, more than 3 weeks' worth for 2 children, or the better part of 6 weeks for 1. Mum, handing over the dinner money on a Monday morning in a little brown envelope, was a ritual that millions of families went through week in, week out. You'd queue up in the hall with your metal tray, shuffle it along the counter, and eat whatever got plonked on it. The mash was always lumpy. The mince had a greyish look about it. The custard had that skin on top, but it was hot and it filled you up, and for a good many kids it was the heartiest meal of the entire day. Come September, when the children needed sorting out for the new school year, A fiver covered most of the essentials. A pair of school shoes from Woolworths or the market was about £2.50. Grey trousers or a skirt and a couple of white shirts from the co-op ran to another pound or two. Nothing glamorous, but perfectly decent. Enough to get a child back through those gates looking tidy and turned out. Brand new shoes not yet worn in, mum telling you to keep them polished. The same end of August routine that played out in households right across the country. A genuine Wrangler or Brutus Gold denim jacket from Foster Brothers or one of the high street chains was about £4.75 in 1975. That jacket was the standard issue for British teenagers that year, worn over a t-shirt with high-waisted flares and a pair of platforms, collar turned up, maybe a badge or two on the chest. One fiver, and you walked into school on Monday morning looking absolutely the part. People clocked it before you'd even opened your mouth. By 1975, a basic portable transistor radio from Boots or Comet was coming in at around £4.95. Nothing much to look at, just a plastic box with a tuning dial and a weedy little speaker. But it was yours. You took it to the park in the summer, pressed it to your ear on Saturday afternoons for the classified results, and shoved it under your pillow at night to catch Radio Luxembourg after everyone else had gone to bed. Your own private connection to the outside world. A fiver, and it was yours. Something else that had dropped to £4.95 by late 1975 was a pocket calculator, which would have been absolutely unthinkable just a few years earlier when the same gadget cost £50 or more. A basic model from Boots or Woolworths. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. You jabbed the buttons and the answer appeared like witchcraft. Your teacher was dead against you bringing it into the classroom, which naturally meant you were absolutely determined to. The colour TV licence went up to £18 in April 1975, which meant a fiver covered just over 3 months of it. 3 months of telly in 1975 took in the very first run of Fawlty Towers, which kicked off on BBC Two in September. It included the Generation Game with Bruce Forsyth on Saturday evenings, Top of the Pops every Thursday, and Morecambe and Wise whenever they graced the screen. The whole family crammed round one set for all of it. Everyone knew at least one household without a licence, living in dread of the detector van rolling down their road, or that knock at the door from the bloke with the clipboard. First-class stamps were 7p each in 1975, so a fiver bought you 71 of them. 71. Enough to get a Christmas card off to every relative, every mate, every neighbour, the milkman, the postman, the teacher, and still have a few left knocking about. You'd be at the kitchen table on a December evening, writing them all out one after another, licking the backs, then trudging down to the postbox on the corner. A 7-inch single at Woolworths was around 50p, so a fiver got you 10 brand new records. Bohemian Rhapsody dropped in October 1975 and went on to become one of the greatest selling singles ever recorded. Space Oddity was re-released that same year and shot straight to number 1. You could own both of those and still pick out 8 more from the racks for the price of a single blue fiver. You'd carry them home, lower the needle onto the vinyl, and hear a song you'd been waiting weeks for fill your bedroom for the very first time. The iconic 8-hole Dr. Martens boots retailed at around £5 in 1975. One fiver for a pair of boots that seemed like half the nation wore at some point or another. Skinheads had them first. Students got hold of them. The punks would make them their own before the decade was through. They went on for years because they were made to last. And they said something about you, where you were from, what you were about. The dog license in Britain was 37.5p. And it never budged, not once. From decimalisation in 1971 right the way through until it was done away with in 1987. Everything else in the country was creeping upwards, and that price just sat there, frozen solid. In 1975, a fiver covered the licence, picked up a basic lead for 50p, grabbed 2 tins of chum at 15p each, and got a bowl from the market for about 30p. Everything a new dog could possibly need, and you'd still have well over £3 jingling in your pocket. If any of that took you back, leave a comment below and tell us which one hit you hardest. And if you know someone who remembers that blue fiver and just how far it could go, pass this along to them. Please do subscribe to keep these stories coming.